Hello everyone, Marshmallow Duelist here, and welcome to Tech Talk Thursday. In today's video we'll be discussing a very splashable budget floodgate that can help you against more or less every deck that's in the meta right now. We'll be going over what decks can run it, what it's good against, and how to best play it. Today's subject is Imperial Iron Wall. This is a continuous trap that reads, neither player can banish cards. It's a very simple card, that is its only effect, but it is a continuous trap nonetheless. That is a lot better than it may first seem. So first off, should you be getting this card and how easy is it to get? Well, with this card's recent rare printing, which is the set's equivalent of a common in Tactical Masters, this card is very easy to get, and you can probably pick these up for less than £1 or $1 for a playset very easily, and that's it. That's all you need. This doesn't really require any other cards to be played alongside it, so it's very, very budget and can be splashed into a lot of decks. Now, what does it stop? The obvious first thing that may come to your mind is Kashtira, as the whole deck revolves around banishing, right? So Fenrir can't banish your cards. Unicorn can't banish your extra deck. Ogre can't banish your top deck. The list goes on. Dimensional Fissure, Macrocosmos, they no longer work. You can't be DD Crowed anymore. So pretty much that whole deck is just completely shut down. Now, what else suffers from this? As we've sort of gone back a format as well, alongside having the new Kashtira cards, thanks to the major ban of Telements, decks like Sword Soul are now seeing a lot of play. Not only does this stop Sword Soul cards and some 10-year cards, such as the Synchros, it also stops the Pot of Desires that they use a lot. Now, not only does it stop Pot of Desires, but it stops all modern pot cards. So Pot of Desires, Pot of the Forbidden, not Pot of the Forbidden, sorry, that's the wrong one. Pot of Extravagance. Just any of the new pot cards, they all require you to either banish from the top of your deck or from the extra deck. Again, neither player can banish, so they simply lose out on that hand advantage, draw power that their deck relies on. So that's a really good thing, and also the Sword Soul can't banish your monsters. Things like Draco Berserker can't banish your monsters because nothing can be banished. Certain other decks also require banishing, so the new Chaos stuff released in Photon Hypernova, that requires banishing of Light and Darks. Bestials requires banishing of Light and Darks, they no longer work under this. The list goes on, really. Just anything that's been considered competitive recently or is still considered competitive has some form of banishing. All to different lengths, sure, but some decks like Sword Soul and Kashtira rely on it pretty heavily, more so than it may first seem with decks like Sword Soul Tenyi. And so it's a very heavy hitter on those decks, and with decks like Bestials, it more or less just stops them. If they can't out the Imperial Iron Wall, then they can't out you, and you win the game. So it's just really, really strong. It's really cheap, and it's just a one continuous trap that is required for setup. Some things that could be run alongside it could be Temple of the King, so you could activate it turn 1. It could be run in a Uriah deck or a Uriah Trap Monster deck. I have done this, and I did beat a Shizu Naturia deck because they couldn't banish for their certain cards. I can't remember what it was, but essentially it just completely stopped them. I also beat a Bestial player, so it really does help defeat those decks, and it's really good in rogue decks. What other decks is it good in? Basically anything that doesn't require banishing itself. Now, that isn't a whole lot, but you also have to think, like, if you're only banishing for something like a Pot of Extravagance, right, then you can do your whole turn, set this, and open this on your opponent's standby phase. You've done all the banishing you're going to need to do. You got your +2 and drew your cards. You've set up your board. Now it's your opponent's turn, and they can't banish. even then, oh yeah, again, sorry, you could even sub out your pot cards if it's really that bad for the walls, so that you have nothing in your deck that requires banishing, or you can just run it in a whole host of decks that don't banish at all. I know some decks like Karyu Shin may first come to mind, like Karyu Shin Control. There's sorts of control decks like Eldritch. However, Karyu Shin can't really play this too well. But the main decks that you want to be playing it in are ones that aren't really meta or tiered decks right now. Stuff such as Heroes doesn't banish a whole lot besides their Miracle Fusion, so it could be good in that. But if you have a deck that can produce high power monsters, maybe such as like Nordics, right? Then your high power monster, if you just stop your opponent banishing, maybe set up a skill drain too. Banishing basically stops a lot of these decks from setting up their whole combos. It stops their whole setup. So then it more or less comes down to who's got the bigger monsters, right? So a deck like Nordics has some really powerful gods, obviously the gods. Speaking of the gods, we could go for an Obelisk deck, a Slifer deck. These decks that don't really require banishing, if any, well, any if at all, and produce really high beatstick tower monsters, maybe something like Ignistas. These can really benefit from stopping your opponent banishing, as you're not hurting yourself and you're getting some really strong monsters on the field. And again, if this is topped up or backed up by a skill drain, then it just goes even further. So decks that can afford to play lots of traps, like Uriah trap monsters, can play this well. And decks that produce big beatstick boss monsters can also play this really well. That more or less concludes it for this week's Tech Talk Thursday. This has been Marshmallow Duelist. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts of this card. Are you running it? Have you picked it up already? Are you going to pick it up thanks to this video? Let me know all that stuff in the comments. I really do want to know. I want to know your takes on this card as a whole. Are you siding it? Are you main decking it? Because honestly, some decks, sure, just side deck it, but some decks could actually main deck this and not be at too much of a disadvantage. I'm thinking ones that just run a butt ton of floodgates. So, yeah, let me know in the comments. I will respond and I'll have a conversation with you about it. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope to see you guys next week or in another one of my videos /series. Thanks for watching. See you guys soon.